We're going to go to Kentucky, and we're going to dive into this hearing with the military wife shooting case. This was this week on Thursday. Jordan Henning, he was charged with murder. Jury found him guilty of a lesser charge of manslaughter for the death of his wife, Ashley. We watched this play out on Court TV. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison. That was the max sentence. Jury gave him the lower count of guilty, but the judge gave him the maximum sentence. Well, Henning tried to use the law to his advantage. He went to court this week, and he, in an attempt to get years taken off of his sentence, I'm talking years, he would have gone down to 4 years if he was successful here. And this is Kentucky law. If he's the victim of domestic violence, that's what he claims, then he would have gone down to 4 years instead of 20. So huge implications for this hearing. Her family was in the courtroom. This was something else. During the trial, the jury saw the home security video of Henning shooting and killing his wife. Then he took the stand and said, oh, he was suffering from domestic violence, and he just snapped. So let's do this. We're going to pick up this hearing, and if you were watching last hour, you might know the end of the hearing, but I'm not going to say it because there's a lot at stake here and we don't want you to not watch. So here we go. This is the Henning being questioned by his defense attorney about this alleged abuse.
Mr. Henning, instead of having you come up here to the witness stand, I'm just going to have you sit at the counsel's table because I know that you've got shackles and everything else on, and we're not here with the jury or anything. This is as a court proceeding, so we'll get you raise your right hand. Best you can. You swear affirm the testimony you're about to give you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so you got it? I do. Sorry, and Mr. Reed, you can sit at counsel's table or either way.
Well, I prefer to stand over here, Judge, to make sure that he speaks up.
Yeah, if you move that around just so we can get everything on the record.
Thank you. Jordan, state your name.
Jordan Henning.
And just for the record, you're the one who's saying this is the defendant in this case. Is that correct?
Yeah, could you say it again?
Excuse me. Just for purposes of the record, you are the same Jordan Henning that's the defendant in this case. You've already been convicted of manslaughter in the first degree. Is that
yes,
correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, do you understand why we're here today?
Yes, sir.
I want you to talk about your marriage to Ashley, and in particular, I want to talk about some instances of domestic abuse and violence that you had to put up with, that you suffered during your marriage. I want to start with Colorado. When you first went to Colorado, when you first married her, would you tell the court what happened with regard to the stairwell or stair steps?
Yes, so as I was exiting the front door, that's when Ashley kicked me in the back. And when I fell forward, hit my chin, and I went down. It was about 5 or 6 steps down until we hit the sidewalk. It was where our porch was, and that was the first incident.
And were you injured in that?
I was.
Would you tell the court what your injuries were?
I had a laceration on my chin that my NCO helped bandaged up.
You require stitches?
No, we did basically super glue. It was derma glue.
Okay, did you report that to the authorities?
No, I reported it to my chain of command.
Okay. How come you didn't report it to the legal authorities?
Well, my chain of command advised against it. They said, you guys are freshly married, this is probably just a one-off. And that they said, why don't you go to family counseling with the chaplain, and that way we can keep everything in-house and at the lowest level.
And justified at the trial, there was a later incident where she threw, I think you said, a phone against your chest and left a mark on your chest.
No, sir. That was, if you're referring to the mark across my chest, I was sleeping, and she was cleaning the bathroom. I don't know what I did in there, to be honest, if I left a mess or, something. But when she came out, she took the broom and she smacked it across my chest when I was asleep. Started me awake, and we got into an argument after that.
Is that the mark that was on your chest?
Yes, sir.
And that was one of the exhibits to the trial judge, and I think it was Exhibit 4 to the trial judge, defendant's Exhibit 4. Did you report that to the authorities?
No, I talked to my chain of command about that as well.
Okay. For starters, let me back up, I apologize. When did that occur, before or after the stairwell?
This was after. This would have been January of 2023.
Okay, was that in Colorado? Or
No, that was here.
here in Fort Knox?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you reported to your chain of command and you were advised what?
To seek the counseling services of the chaplain again.
Okay, and this is what you did or attempted to do?
This is what I did, yes.
Okay. They, at the trial, you also testified, you showed us some blood inside your mouth along the lip line or the gun line.
Yes, sir.
Just tell us more about that.
So the one where the bruise was on the inside of my mouth, that was, we got into an argument and she threw the remote at me, and as I turned to look at her, it hit me in the mouth.
Okay, and what were you all arguing about then?
I think it was the kids, to be honest.
Okay.
We argued a lot about
Did
them.
you report that to the legal? When did that occur?
That occurred in October of 2022.
And were you here or in Fort Knox?
I was here.
Excuse me, Colorado.
I was here.
And that was, I think, exhibit number 3, defense exhibit number 3 to trial, Your Honor. You also talked and showed an instance where she had bitten your hand.
Yes, sir.
Where did that occur?
That happened here at Fort Knox.
Okay, and what about that?
So she had the HRC ball. This was January.
You know, you stop you.
Yes, sir.
You know, you're talking to a guy that doesn't understand the RDL. What's the HRC?
Human Resources Command. It was where it actually worked. We had a military ball. It was her unit's military ball. This was late January of 2022. We went to that. It was at the Galt House, and when we got home, we were arguing about the kids. And if I believe correctly, it was Tyler. He was in charge of watching them because he was the oldest. But she was yelling at him about something, and I told her to just leave him be.
Slow down, I couldn't understand you.
So Tyler was always in charge when we would go out to watch the younger two. When we returned, she was yelling at him about something, and I kind of stepped in the way and was like, hey, stop, just let him go to bed. So what we would do is whose unit ball it was the one who was allowed to drink. The other person was the designated driver. So that night I didn't have anything to drink, but when I kind of stepped in between her and Tyler, she started smacking on me, and I put my hands up. I was like, stop. And that's when she grabbed my wrist, and then she bit me, and she was like, how's this for stop? And then, that's when I just...
Did you report that to the authorities?
No.
Then you did try to report it to the authorities. Tell the court about that. You testified about this at trial. Tell the court anyway.
So I called Hardin County Sheriff's to get advice on what to do. And they really downplayed it. They didn't believe me. They kind of laughed it off, and then they, kept saying, well, it's marital property. She can do what she wants.
Okay. And you honor those records of those phone calls, but I think were defense exhibit number 7. You remember Dr. Anderson, our Dr. Anderson, Justin S.
Yes, sir.
Testifying about the stigma associated with males reporting domestic violence.
Yes, sir.
Would you repeat that to the judge, please?
It takes a lot for somebody to report it, especially as a male, but, even when you do, people don't believe you. And you usually get met with, well, what'd you do to deserve it?
All right, let's bring in someone who knows all about this, Jessica Basharli. You remember, defended Marsha Thompson successfully, who was a victim of abuse. You could feel that all the way through her trial. All right, I'm not saying that men don't get abused, but what's your take on this guy and his stories of abuse, and how does the court parse this out because there's so much at stake in this hearing. If he's successful, his 20-year sentence, which he'd probably serve about 85% of, drops down to 4 years. This is massive. The families are in the courtroom. What is the judge looking for? And if you were defending him, what would you be accentuating for the judge?
So I think the judge probably already made up his mind at the trial, and he's not supposed to do that, and I'm probably not supposed to say that, but he did sit through the entire trial, and there was a lot of talk about the domestic violence at the trial. So I think he knows going into it. I think the judge has probably already decided as well that a 4-year sentence would not be appropriate for this defendant. I think that's where the judge's head is at. He would probably be open-minded and looking to hear something that's new that he didn't know anything about. But I think it's a lot in the way things are delivered, the way someone says something rather than what they say. And when you listen to him here, you don't hear a lot of emotion. You don't hear a lot of remorse. And if I had been his attorney, I would have been advising him to heavily lean on his remorse for the situation. That would be number one. And after that, the emotion, trying to think back to the emotion that he felt in those moments when he was being abused. I don't see it here.
Yeah, he's very clinical in his resuscitation of what happened and how he did X, Y, or Z after supposed incidents took place. Let's get a break. When we come back, the prosecution questions Henning about how he could be the victim of abuse when this happened. The home security video shows a completely different scenario where he is the aggressor and he ends up killing his wife.
That whole video, that whole evening, she's trying to distance herself from you, isn't she? You follow her through the house, don't you?
Yes.
Friday nights, the WNBA is on ION. Tonight, the Sun take on the Lynx. Then, the Storm host the Mercury. Coverage starts tonight at 7. Find ION wherever you watch. ION, it's on.
How can anybody think I'm guilty? I said, OJ, everybody thinks you're guilty.
Trial and error. Why did OJ win? Marathon begins Saturday morning, 9/8 Central. Only on Court TV.
She got mad and she would grab me right in the manhood. She had kicked me in the back down our concrete steps. I don't know what I was thinking.
Right, that case was something else. The case against Mr. Henning. He basically killed his military wife in Kentucky, Jordan Henning, and he was convicted, as he should have been. There's video of it. Video of him shooting and chasing her around with the gun, then going to reload and finishing her off. The jury didn't think it was murder. They gave him this reduced sentence, well, of manslaughter. They said, all right, guilty of manslaughter. Why? Partly because he testified that he was the victim of abuse. The judge already sentenced him here, but he's back in court this week, and he's basically using a Kentucky law for victims of domestic violence that can have their sentences substantially reduced. He wants to take advantage of it. He's already won one battle. Now he's going to come in, try to double down. Let's head back into the courtroom. This is where prosecutors are questioning Henning about his extramarital affairs and his alleged abuse at the hands of his wife.
Talk an awful lot about things your chain of command told you to do, trying to downplay the supposed issues of domestic violence, right?
Yes, sir.
We didn't verify any of that when we were on the stand. How do you explain that?
I can't. That was an argument at a time or two, as well as her relationships with other men.
Like you heard, Ashley.
Object to that, Judge. Committed the act of manslaughter.
Kill. Let's say kill.
Okay.
Like you killed Ashley. She's heard on the video saying she's going to call Andrew. You're heard blaming her for everything, really. She's ruining your career. That whole video, that whole evening, she's trying to distance herself from you, isn't she? You followed her through the house, don't you?
Yes.
What was going to ruin your career is the way you were acting. Isn't that true? It wasn't her. It wasn't anything she said or did. It was the way your aggressive behavior. You were following her around the house. You want everybody to believe that you were the victim here? What really happened in Colorado? The story you're telling, you were upset over another person. You had a gun out that night just like you did on this night, didn't you?
No, sir.
Yes, you did.
Objection, Your Honor, is argumentative.
I mean, we're glad to hear it. There's less evidentiary requirements going in front of the jury. It's just in front of me. Questions can be listed on cross-examination that go to issues concerning domestic violence, leading up to domestic violence, past issues. So,
You were arguing because you were waving your gun around and going to go after her ex-husband that night, weren't you?
No, sir.
Not only were you having extramarital relationships, you want to claim that she was abusive to you in a sexual way as well, right? Right?
There was one instance, yes.
All right, Jessica Mashali, his response initially was, well, you had these extramarital affairs. Right away, he's like, well, so did Ashley. As if that was, well, you know, we were even, so you got to take that out of the equation. It's all part of this, is it not? Or does it matter that he or she had affairs? And we're going to learn later he was into some sort of fetish world as well. Does that matter in terms of abuse?
I think it absolutely does matter. And Ted, you picked up on something that I always warn so heavily my clients. The absolute worst thing you can do is answer a question about something you did with blame shifting or saying, so did somebody else do it. It's not a defense to anything that you've done wrong to say that somebody else did something wrong too. And it really emphasizes a lack of accountability. And I think, again, a lack of remorse. I think that a showing of sincere remorse at this hearing could have made a huge difference for him. And we really didn't see that. We just saw a lot of blaming and a lot of self-interest. There's always self-interest, right? That's why he's there. He's trying to save himself and spare himself. But a showing of true remorse really could have helped him here. And as far as the abuse, I think, I was on the show about this case while it was going on. And I think there's no question that this was not a case where he could have argued self-defense due to a battered spouse syndrome. This was not that kind of situation. In that kind of situation, there would have never been a video like this. He would have never been cheating. He would have had really no voice in the relationship and just been in a constant state of submitting to her. That's not what the relationship was. That doesn't mean there weren't some acts of abuse. There can still be some acts of abuse, but he certainly was not acting in self-defense. Now, those acts of abuse, we're relying on him as to whether or not they're true. There's not a lot of outside evidence other than his word. So his credibility is huge here. His demeanor when he speaks and his credibility as a person. And I don't think the judge really believes a lot of what he said.
Yeah, that's a great distinction. An incident or two of physical altercation is far different than a life of being controlled by an abuser that is overlooking your constant moves. He wouldn't have the opportunity to cheat or because he'd be too busy answering to his abuser in the classic sense. That's a great point because you don't see that. And coming up, you're going to see a little bit more of how he had a whole nother life going on the internet. But we're going to get a break. When we come back, we'll talk about another case that is alleging abuse, and that's Sean Combs. Rapper Kid Cudi testified this week. If you're watching right now going, how come you people aren't showing Karen Reed or talking about Diddy all that? Well, both courtrooms are dark. As we get ready for the Memorial Day holiday. That's why. But we're going to talk both Karen Reed, 11 o'clock with Matt Johnson, and when we come back, we'll talk Sean Diddy Combs. Plus, the Commonwealth of Kentucky reveals that hidden side of convicted killer, Mr. Fetish Jordan Henning.
Is this your profile on Fetlife.com?
Yes, sir.
First page is your profile. The second page is all of the things that you're into. Is that right?
When I created this, yes, at the time.
All right, we'll head back to that hearing in Kentucky in just a minute where Chad Henning reveals his fetishes to the judge. Yeah. But we want to let you know, if you missed any Karen Reed this week, no problem. We've got you covered. Catch up over the weekend. We're going to be streaming the testimony from this week, including Dr. Wolf, all weekend. Court TV, you get it on the website, iOS, Android, you name it, wherever you get your stuff, we're there. Court TV is there. So Karen Reed, if you need your fix, we have you covered. Now, an update out of New York, where testimony resumes Tuesday in the sex trafficking trial for Sean Diddy Combs. Court dark today. The disgraced music mogul has pled not guilty to multiple charges after being accused of using his fame and power to sexually abuse women for decades, including his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. Court ended yesterday with testimony from a key witness, rapper Kid Cudi. He dated Ventura he thought it was after she and Combs were together. It turns out that they were continuing their relationship. Last week, Ventura testified about Combs possibly torching Cudi's car after finding them out. Here's some AI-generated testimony from Ventura about the incident and then Cudi yesterday after his day in court.
He mentioned that when we were out of the country, that Scott's car would be blown up. John wanted Scott's friends to be there to see the car get blown up in the driveway.
Ms. Ventura, what do you recall happening at the end of the meeting?
Scott said, "What about my vehicle?" And Sean said, "What vehicle?"
This is a stressful situation. I'm glad it's behind me. And, yeah, I love y'all, man. Big love.
Big love from Kid Cudi. He came in and delivered for the federal government. Testimony resumes Tuesday with former Combs employees expected to take the stand along with our coverage. Kelly Craft, who was in the ground there in New York, she's going to be in Atlanta anchoring our coverage here next week, and we'll have our team back in the courtroom there giving us hourly updates as we did last week. Unfortunately, no cameras in federal court, but we're still getting all the good stuff. Now, let's go back to Kentucky, where this former soldier, Jordan Henning, he was back in court this week. He was found guilty earlier this year of a lesser included charge of manslaughter for shooting death of his wife, Ashley. We saw it all play out. So did the jury on video. But the jury said, let's give him the lower sentence. Well, now the judge has a decision to make. Should he reduce the 20-year sentence because Henning says he's the victim of domestic abuse? Let's go back in, because right now there's some weird questioning going on about Henning's activity on an adult website called Fetlife.com.
Is this your profile on Fetlife.com?
Yes, sir.
Yes. That's one you gave. I'll just ask you to follow. First page is your profile. The second page is all of the things that you're into. Is that right?
When I created this, yes, at the time.
That's you?
Yes, sir.
And those are all pictures of you or pictures you've posted?
Yes, sir.
In the next couple of pages, again, listing the things you're into.
Yes, sir.
And the last page is a video that you posted.
Not on Fetlife, sir.
It's on a different website, isn't it?
Yep.
What is that last video that you posted?
Of me and an ex-boyfriend.
What did you write on that post?
Me?
Jack, before he goes any further. These were at least 2 years before he was married.
Okay. So, what would the objection be?
Well, they're not relevant because the pictures that he has shown, the website he has shown, are dated in August of 14. And they didn't marry until in 2016.
Correct.
These videos of these pictures in this website, they were created 2 years prior to the marriage.
I guess I do believe that relevancy analysis will still be there for any evidence concerning past domestic violence, lack thereof, issues. Is it relevant to something that happened before they got married? Can you tie it in?
Yes, Your Honor. I believe these specific acts that he claims to be abusive by Ashley are things that he lists on this website. I'll introduce those to the court here in a minute. How so? Specifically, the acts that he claimed were abuse are acts that he lists and shows in the video and photos from his postings. They're the things that he is into.
I mean, we approach Judge.
Well, I mean, what's the look? Okay. Do I think we can delve in this type of area? I've had it before. We've delved into family, and trust me, sometimes you delve into family issues, family skeletons. Can it be relevant? Obviously, he's made an issue of previous domestic violence by her against him. I mean, it's always going to be relevant. Past history, good and bad, things that we don't necessarily want people to know about. I just had a little hard time coming off if it was prior to the marriage, unless there's something. You see what I'm saying? I think if this was during marriage, I think you got a little more leeway. Before I allow it to kind of get too far, I think you put it in there. How is it tied to any domestic violence or lack thereof, or lack of, maybe intent of her to have domestic violence, or cross-examining him on anything? I just want to make sure it's relevant to to my finding, and I'll have to make yea or nay that he was a victim of domestic violence.
Yes. So coming from Colorado, you updated your profile, first moving your location to Vine Grove, Kentucky, and then Radcliffe, Kentucky. Is that right?
Yes, I did.
And you've joined the group Tri-State, Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana.
I did.
And this is after you're married, you're living here in Hardin County.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so he's got the Fetlife profile before he's married to Ashley, but then he's also on some sort of other group after his marriage. Jessica Mashali, his life beforehand, the prosecutor is saying, hey, he's saying on this weird website that he likes all of the things that he's now saying she did to him, and that was abuse. What, if anything, should be considered in terms of this portion of the hearing by the judge? Or is it something that shouldn't be considered?
I think it's relevant. It's absolutely relevant if it goes to show that he's there testifying that he was being abused. If in the meantime he's requesting abuse and telling people that he likes that and that's what he wants, I think it's absolutely relevant to the claims that he's making right now. I also think it's fairly prejudicial. It's kind of a win-win for the prosecutor. The judge will either take it as relevant or otherwise the judge has seen it and it's prejudicial to the defendant.
Yeah, I mean, it's game over, probably.